Oh, my dear, come sit a while. Settle into your favorite chair. Let your shoulders loosen, and let the world slow down for a bit. I see how tired you are. The weight of the day pressing softly against your chest, the hum of busy streets and hurried footsteps still echoing in your mind. But here, just for a little while, you don't need to move. You don't need to think too hard. You only need to breathe and listen. The kettle might still be warm, or the soft scent of evening tea might curl through the room, and perhaps there's a gentle breeze brushing past the curtains, whispering softly through the window. This is a place for quiet, a little nook where time bends just for you, where your thoughts can drift like leaves on a calm river, and you can let go of the day's worries, even for just a moment. So tuck your feet under a blanket, feel the softness around you, and let your mind wander, not toward your lists or tasks, but toward something gentle, something soft, something that whispers warmth and comfort, a little pocket of calm where the world is hushed and golden. And I promise, what comes next will take you on a journey your heart will quietly remember long after the lights dim. Elara was curled up by her window when a soft flicker caught her eye, a golden pulse that danced through the thick evening fog, swaying like a secret heartbeat just beyond the glass. The quiet hum of the town settling around her like a slow sigh, and somehow it felt as if the world had paused for a moment, holding its breath. The lantern hung there, swaying lightly on its invisible chain, casting a warmth that didn't belong to the cold street lamps, its glow brushing the wet cobblestones below, stirring shadows that looked almost like tiny whispers dancing on the walls. Curiosity tugged at Elara's heart, and she leaned closer, her fingers brushing the cool sill, feeling a shiver that wasn't from the night air. She hesitated for a heartbeat, then, unable to resist, she reached out to touch the lantern. The moment her fingertips met the smooth, almost liquid warmth of the metal, the world shifted, a soft swirl of color and light enveloping her, and she gasped as a vision unfolded, a memory long tucked away, the way shadows used to hide under her bed when she was small, the sound of her own nervous breathing echoing in a darkened room, the fear twisting like a ribbon around her heart. But this time, it felt alive, almost real, the hairs on her arms rising as if the memory wanted her to remember. She stumbled back slightly, pressing a hand to her chest, the pulse of the lantern's light lingering on her skin like a gentle warmth. The fog outside seemed to lean closer, brushing against the window with tiny whispers, and though the rest of the town slept, wrapped in their ordinary dreams, Elara could feel the pulse of something extraordinary in her own chest, a quiet insistence that this was more than a trick of the light. The town had always dismissed the lanterns as old myths, tales mothers told children to make them wary of wandering at night, and even Elara had listened politely as a child, nodding along to the stories, never believing. Yet now, the golden light wove its spell around her, gentle yet undeniable, pulling at a curiosity she had long tried to keep buried. She wrapped her hands around her knees, sitting back on the window seat, letting her mind drift through the swirling warmth, thinking of the times she had imagined herself braver than she felt, and the quiet corners of her heart that hid secrets she barely understood. A small smile tugged at her lips as she whispered to herself, what if the stories were true? What if there was something in the night waiting just for those willing to see it? The lantern flickered again, and she noticed The way its glow seemed to breathe, the golden light spilling like honey over the cobblestones, scenting the damp air with the soft smell of rain and something faintly sweet, like old paper and candle wax. The quiet creak of a nearby branch brushing the window seemed almost like a sigh of approval, and she felt a warmth settle in her chest, a mixture of fear, wonder, and a thrilling sense of being exactly where she was meant to be. Elara leaned closer, resting her cheek against the cool glass, watching the lantern's heartbeat in the fog, feeling the pulse echo in her own. Her thoughts wandering to who or what might have left it there, and why it had chosen her. The world felt hushed, as if the trees and the distant chimneys were listening to Anne. She realized she didn't want the lantern to leave, didn't want the vision to fade, even if it frightened her, because for the first time in a long while, the night felt like it held a secret meant just for her. With a soft exhale, she pulled her hands from her knees, brushing the sleeve of her cardigan over her fingers. And as the golden light dimmed slightly, slipping back into its quiet rhythm, she felt a shiver of anticipation, a whisper of promise, that this was only the beginning. The fog curling like silver smoke around the lamplight, the town silent and still, and Elara knew, with a gentle thrill, that she would never see the night the same way again. And so, with the lantern's glow retreating into the mist, she pressed her forehead gently against the glass, letting the warm pulse settle in her thoughts, imagining what mysteries might linger in the fog. And as her eyelids grew heavy, a tiny spark of wonder lingered in her chest, soft as a lullaby, beckoning her toward the unknown that waited just beyond the window. Asterisk. The night air carried a soft hush, as if the fog itself leaned close to listen, and Elara tiptoed along the narrow cobblestone lane, her cardigan brushing her arms, the golden glow of the lantern pulsing gently ahead, each flicker casting tiny shadows that seemed to bow and sway in greeting. She reached out, fingertips grazing the warm metal, and this time, she let her curiosity guide her fully. The lantern shivered beneath her touch, and suddenly the air shimmered, a gentle ripple, rolling outwards, revealing not just the shapes of old fears, but soft, whispered fragments of memories long tucked away. A childhood birthday she had forgotten, the quiet sound of her mother humming while tucking her in, the feel of her brother's small hand brushing against hers in apology after a fight. Each vision danced around her, golden and tender, a tapestry of small, lost moments she had never thought to remember. She stepped back, breath-catching, heart fluttering like a bird in her chest, and realized that the lanterns were not mere reflections of fear. They were mirrors of forgotten truths and hidden desires. The thought made her shiver, part wonder, part something she couldn't yet name. As she lingered, tracing the light with her eyes, a soft voice spoke from the shadows, a presence that made her spin gently. And there, leaning against the fogged window of a closed shop, was a man, tall, cloaked in shadow, eyes glinting with curiosity and something older, something wiser. "My name is Kale," he said, voice low, like the rustle of dry leaves. "I've been waiting for you to see them properly." Elara blinked, unsure if she should step back or forward, the lantern between them glowing warmly, inviting yet strange. Kale moved closer, careful and silent, like he belonged to the night itself. "Not everything you see in these lights is meant to be touched. Some truths are dangerous," he whispered, and Elara felt a shiver trail down her spine, the fog curling around. Them, like a protective shawl, she swallowed, curiosity wrestling with caution. "But how do you know so much?" she asked softly, voice barely louder than the whispering wind. Kale smiled faintly, a shadow of mystery in his gaze. "Because I've seen what happens when truths escape, when moments that are meant to stay in the lanterns spill into the world. And sometimes the world isn't ready," he said, the lantern flickering between them, painting soft gold on their faces. And Elara felt both fear and fascination twist together in her chest. Her fingers traced the rim of the lantern, feeling the hum of its light vibrate softly. Memories of her own small regrets surfaced, tiny choices she had tucked away. And she wondered if she was ready for the responsibility of knowing more. The night seemed to stretch, trees leaning in close, their leaves whispering secrets only she could hear. She wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but the warmth of Kale's presence, steady and calm, was enough to keep the fear from overtaking her curiosity. Elara's mind swirled gently with thought. What if some of these visions were warnings, echoes of choices she hadn't yet made, or glimpses of truths she wasn't prepared for? Yet there was a thrill in knowing she could touch these shadows and memories, feel their pulse beneath her fingers. She whispered softly to herself, "What if I'm meant to see these things? What if this is why the lantern called me?" And her chest tightened with the weight of wonder, the comfort of the familiar, and the tiny thrill of stepping into something unknown. The fog smelled of damp earth and faint rain. The street lamp, distant and pale in comparison to the lantern's glow. The creak of an old sign swung gently in the night, the hum of the lamp like a heartbeat, and Elara felt the quiet magic of it all settle around her, her toes brushing the cold stones, the warmth of the lantern reaching her skin, the soft glow painting the fog with gold and silver threads, a cozy, strange kind of enchantment wrapping her like a favorite blanket. Kale stepped back, letting the light spill between them, his gaze lingering. "Remember, some things are meant to stay in the shadows," he murmured, and the lantern pulsed once, twice, before the vision softened into gentle warmth, leaving her heart racing and her mind spinning as she watched him fade into the mist, leaving only the golden glow to guide her thoughts. And Elara pressed her palm to the lantern, feeling its quiet insistence, a promise that there was more to discover, more to understand. As the fog wrapped the town in its silvery embrace, and the night whispered on, gently coaxing her toward the next secret. The night hummed softly, a low mist curling through the streets like a whispered secret, and Elara walked slowly along the familiar cobblestones, her fingers brushing against the rough brick walls, feeling the pulse of the lantern ahead, golden and steady, a quiet promise in the fog. She shivered slightly as the lantern swayed gently, casting shadows that flickered like small, watching eyes. The scent of damp earth and faint smoke curling around her when she touched the lantern, a swirl of light wrapped around her hands, warm and insistent, and suddenly the world shifted, revealing a vision she hadn't expected, her closest friend, someone she trusted with her smallest thoughts and dreams, caught in an act of betrayal, a secret whispered behind closed doors, a lie that felt like a knife pressed softly against the tender fabric of their bond. Elara's heart thumped painfully, the golden glow reflecting in her wide eyes, a voice inside her whispering, "What should I do? What is real? What can I change?" She pulled back, brushing her sleeve over her fingers, the lantern's warmth still lingering like a pulse against her palm, and thought of all the quiet afternoons and shared smiles, the long conversations over books and tea, wondering if any of it had been untouched by this hidden truth. The vision wavered slightly, almost like it was aware of her hesitation, and she felt a weight settle in her chest, a mixture of fear, sorrow, and a strange, almost thrilling sense of power. The power to alter what was hidden, the power to act. Elara's mind raced, the fog wrapping the streets like a gentle, cold shawl, distant chimneys letting out thin trails of smoke, and she whispered softly, "Could I intervene? Would it matter?" The lantern seemed to pulse in answer, gentle, persistent, urging her to consider, and she realized, as she watched the vision shift, that the lanterns were not merely mirrors, they were catalysts. Each choice she made inside them rippling outward, touching the world she knew, subtly at first, but surely, undeniably. Her fingers trembled as she reached toward the vision, soft, golden light pooling around her hands. The thought of revealing the secret to her friend, confronting it gently, dancing in her mind like a candle flame in a quiet room, and yet a small voice of doubt whispered, "What if I make it worse? What if some truths are meant to stay hidden?" She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the flutter of her heartbeat echoing in the quiet night, and remembered Kale's warning. Some truths are dangerous. Some things are not meant to leave the lantern. The air smelled of rain and old leaves, the fog pressing softly against her cheeks, her cardigan wrapped snugly around her shoulders, and Elara felt the warmth of the lantern seep into her bones, comforting yet unsettling, like a gentle hand holding hers while a storm raged beyond the window. The sound of distant footsteps echoed faintly, though the street was empty, and she realized the town itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her choice, waiting for the ripple to start. She closed her eyes for a moment, whispering to herself, "Maybe I can guide this gently. Maybe I can choose kindness over fear." And the lantern pulsed brighter, almost approvingly, shadows shifting on the cobblestones like tiny wings, as if the night itself leaned closer to watch. Her thoughts danced between hope and caution, trust and doubt, and she felt a quiet ache for what might be lost, a tender ache for the fragile bond of friendship. And when she finally reached out, placing her hand fully on the lantern, a warmth flooded through her, gentle and insistent, and the vision wavered, soft and pliable, like light through silk. Her choice made, and yet the town seemed to sigh, small, subtle changes rippling through the fog, whispers beginning to thread their way through the streets, unseen and unstoppable, the lantern's golden glow wrapping around her like a promise. And Elara knew, in a quiet, tremulous way, that nothing would ever be quite the same. She stepped back, brushing the damp mist from her hair, watching the lantern's pulse dim slightly as the vision settled, and for a moment, the fog felt cozy. Again, curling around the lamps and rooftops, silver threads in the soft golden light, a lullaby of the night, promising more, as though the town itself was leaning in to wait for the next ripple. And Elara pressed a gentle hand to her chest, whispering softly to the fog, "What other secrets might wait for me? What other choices might I face?" The fog lay heavy over the town, curling around lampposts and chimneys like soft silver ribbons, and Elara's footsteps echoed gently against the cobblestones, her cardigan brushing her arms, her breath warm and quick in the crisp night air. The the golden glow of the lantern pulsing ahead like a heartbeat, and she felt the pull of something larger than herself, a quiet tug in the marrow of her bones. Cale met her beneath the lantern, shadowed yet welcoming, his eyes reflecting the golden light as he gestured for her to follow, and together they slipped through twisting alleys until the fog thickened and the familiar streets seemed to fold in on themselves. The lantern's glow guiding them like a gentle hand, finally arriving at a narrow archway hidden between two old bookshops. The air inside smelled of old wood and candle wax, warm and comforting, with the faint whisper of pages turning themselves in the corners. He led her down the archway into a vaulted chamber, the walls lined with countless lanterns, each glowing softly, suspended in midair, and Cale's voice was low and steady. "These are the Lantern Keepers," he said, "a society that has existed for centuries, guarding the balance between the lanterns and reality itself." Elara's eyes widened as the light brushed over intricate symbols etched into the walls, symbols that hummed faintly beneath her fingertips when she dared to touch them, a warmth like a heartbeat spreading through her as they moved deeper into the chamber. Cale spoke of the Keeper's rituals, ceremonies designed to maintain harmony, and Elara listened with wide, rapt eyes, the words wrapping around her like a soft, intricate shawl. And then he paused, looking at her with a mixture of caution and reverence. "Your family has a connection to this," he said gently, "hidden, waiting for someone to awaken it, and that someone is you." Her chest tightened, a mixture of pride and fear blooming like soft fire inside her. She traced the nearest lantern, feeling its pulse echo in her fingertips. The warmth of the lanterns made the chamber feel alive, breathing around her, whispering secrets. And yet, in the corners of her vision, shadows shifted, a presence she couldn't name, watching, waiting, growing stronger with each lantern she touched. A cold breath against her spine, despite the gentle heat in her hands, and Elara shivered softly. A flutter of unease tucked alongside her fascination. "I can feel it," she whispered, almost to herself. "Someone's here." Cale's gaze flicked to the corners as well, a small nod acknowledging the silent watcher. Her mind wandered gently, fingers brushing the smooth metal of a nearby lantern, thinking of her family and their quiet past, the small stories her mother had told, the flickers of mystery in old photographs, the letters she'd found tucked in drawers that hinted at more than ordinary life, and a whisper of realization stirred in her heart. What if all these things had been waiting for me to find them, waiting for me to choose to see them? The weight of responsibility settled like soft velvet in her chest, warm and heavy. The lanterns pulsed softly, casting golden light across the chamber, mingling with the shadows that whispered against the walls. The smell of old wood, candle wax, and the faint metallic temps of something unseen. The air felt alive, as if it listened and waited for her thoughts to settle. The distant drip of water from an unseen pipe echoed like a heartbeat. Joining the hum of the lanterns, the chamber seemed infinite yet intimate, wrapping her in a warm, secret embrace. Elara pressed her palm against one of the larger lanterns, letting its warmth seep into her bones, and in a soft, trembling voice, she whispered, "I'll do what I must." A quiet promise that resonated through the chamber, and Cale nodded, placing a steady hand on her shoulder, gentle and grounding. The shadows in the corners shifting once more, patient, curious, the sense of being watched a reminder that the world beyond these walls was still very much alive, waiting for the choices she would make. And as she stepped back, the golden glow of the lanterns pooling around her like warm honey, the shadows retreating softly into corners, the fog outside pressing gently against the arched doorway. Elara felt the quiet thrill of belonging, of secrets unveiled and paths opened, while the watcher lingered, unseen but present, and the chamber seemed to hum with expectation, the soft heartbeat of light guiding her toward the next step in a world that was far larger and far more mysterious than she had ever imagined. The fog hung heavy over the town, thick and soft, like a woolen blanket, curling around rooftops and lampposts, and Elara's footsteps whispered against the cobblestones, her breath puffing small clouds into the chill night, the golden glow of the lantern ahead pulsing like a heartbeat, and she felt the familiar tug of curiosity and unease, a shiver tracing her spine as though the night itself were leaning in to listen. As she touched the lantern, warmth spread through her fingers, a gentle hum vibrating beneath her skin, and the light rippled, spilling golden threads that wrapped around her mind, carrying her into visions she had not yet dared to see, the town itself unfolding before her eyes in quiet, twisted echoes, streets she knew bending slightly, doors opening into memories she had never lived but somehow recognized. And then, soft and terrible, the truth began to appear, a tragedy long buried, repeating like a slow, haunting melody. She saw families torn apart, whispers of anger and sorrow curling through the streets, the same faces appearing over and over, shadows of despair looping through generations, and every attempt to intervene in the vision, the small gestures she tried to change the past, felt like ripples in water that only made the waves harsher, more chaotic. The golden glow of the lantern flickering uncertainly as if warning her, and she pulled her hand back, heart pounding, the warmth fading but leaving a prickling tension behind. A sudden cold brushed her neck, and Elara realized she was not alone. The shadowy figure that had lingered in the corners of her vision before now seemed to stretch beyond the lantern, brushing against the edges of the town itself, bending minds, whispering to the townsfolk unseen, sowing doubt and fear in quiet, subtle ways. She could feel the chaos spreading, a soft tremor in the air, the lantern's light pulsing like a warning bell, and she knew the visions were no longer contained, that every choice she made could ripple outward. Her fingers brushed the lantern again, warm and alive, and she thought of the lives she glimpsed. Small hands reaching, eyes brimming with hope, hearts whispering silent pleas, and a shiver of guilt wound itself around her chest. Could she intervene without making things worse? Or was she meant to watch, to bear witness and learn? Her lips parted slightly as she whispered softly, to herself, to the night, maybe some things are meant to stay hidden until they are ready. Maybe the past is a puzzle meant to teach. The lanterns seemed to hum in agreement, golden light swirling gently, shadows dancing across the walls, curling and stretching in quiet, intimate motion, the scent of rain on stone and faint candle smoke filling her senses, a small warmth of comfort amidst the chill. The distant sound of wind brushing tree branches, the faint creak of old shutters, the fog curling like soft lace through the streets, and Elara felt a shiver of connection to the town, to the lanterns, to the stories long whispered and long hidden. Her thoughts wandered tenderly to her family, to quiet evenings of shared warmth and old tales, to her mother's gentle hand on her shoulder, to the quiet strength of ancestors she had never met but somehow felt near, and she whispered softly, "Maybe this is why I was chosen. Maybe the lanterns are asking me to see, to feel, to understand." The ache in her chest was warm and poignant, a mixture of fear and courage that pressed against her heart, and she let herself lean into it, trusting the soft guidance of the light outside the lantern. The fog wrapped the streets in silver threads, golden light spilling like honey across wet cobblestones, distant chimneys letting out curling plumes of smoke, the town quiet but alive, each flicker of the lantern painting warmth over shadow, a soft lullaby of gold and silver, and the shadowy figure lingered, patient, unseen, waiting for her next move, while Elara pressed her hand to the lantern one last time that night, feeling the hum echo through her bones, and a quiet promise whispered through the fog. The truth is only beginning to unfold, and as she stepped back, the lantern's glow settling softly around her like a gentle hug, the fog curling in silver and gold. Elara took a slow breath, letting the warmth fill her chest, and she felt the quiet pull of the next step, the next secret waiting, whispering in the golden light, guiding her gently toward the unknown that the town and the lanterns had kept for so long. The night pressed close, thick with mist that curled around rooftops and streets like soft smoke, and Elara's footsteps whispered against the cobblestones, her cardigan brushing her arms as the golden glow of the lanterns stretched before her, flickering in gentle pulses, each one like a heartbeat calling her closer, and she felt a tremble of anticipation and unease swirl in her chest. She reached out to the first lantern, its warmth spreading through her fingertips, and the vision unfolded gently at first, a future she had dreamed of, triumphant and bright, her laughter echoing across streets she knew, the town bathed in soft golden light, moments of joy and quiet victories flowing around her, and then another lantern flickered, revealing a different path, shadows pressing against the edges, her footsteps faltering, a loss of direction and purpose curling around her heart like fog. And each lantern after showed her more victories and disasters, love and betrayal, warmth and cold isolation, the possibilities branching endlessly before her. She felt her chest tighten, the pulse of the lanterns humming in resonance with her own, the warmth brushing against her skin like a gentle caress. Yet each vision carried the weight of choice, the pressure of consequence, and she realized the terrifying truth that with each step, each touch of the light, she could lose herself entirely, blending into one of these futures, or none, slipping from the Elara she knew into someone she did not recognize. The thought made her shiver, her fingers trembling against the cool metal. Then, the shadows coalesced, a familiar chill brushing her neck and shoulders, and the figure she had long sensed appeared fully, not in whispers or corners, but directly within the lantern's glow, their presence pressing against her like cold rain, and a voice, soft yet insistent, echoed through the visions. "You see now, don't you? The lanterns belong to those who can command them, and I will shape this town as I wish." The words wrapped around her, a quiet, suffocating thread, pulling at the edges of her certainty. Elara's breath caught, and she pressed a hand against the lantern, feeling its warmth anchor her, grounding her in the pulse of the light. "But I won't let you take this, not for yourself," she whispered. her voice trembling yet firm, and the shadowy figure only smiled, flickering like smoke in the golden glow. The visions of her future bending unnaturally, twisting, as if reacting to their confrontation, the sense of possibility and danger folding into one, a soft thrill of fear curling around her heart. Her thoughts swirled like fog, fingers tracing the lantern's smooth metal, and she asked herself softly, could I face all these paths, all these versions of myself, without losing who I am? Could I hold on to the light, even as it trembles under someone else's hand? A shiver of doubt and courage mingled in her chest. She whispered gently to herself, I must, I have to, and felt the warmth of the lantern respond, a steady heartbeat beneath her palm. Like a promise in the fog, the chamber of lanterns shimmered, gold and amber spilling across the walls, shadows dancing between the light like playful spirits, the air tinged with the faint scent of rain on stone, candle wax, and the quiet metallic tang of unseen magic. The soft hum of the lanterns wrapped around her like a lullaby, while the fog pressed gently against the arched windows, curling and drifting in silver threads, carrying the night's hush and the faint, distant whisper of leaves brushing the rooftops. Elara closed her eyes for a moment, letting her cheek rest against the warm glow of the lantern, a soft breath escaping her lips, feeling the pulse of countless possibilities flowing through her like a river. The shadowy figure lingering beyond the glow, patient, insistent, but she held on to the warmth, quiet and steady, whispering softly, I will not forget who I am. And a gentle thrill of courage unfurled, a small, steadfast flame against the cold presence. And as the visions folded and swirled, the lanterns settling into gentle pulses like slow breathing hearts, the mist pressing softly against the windows and streets outside. Elara felt the quiet pull of the next step, a promise in the golden glow that the path ahead, though uncertain, was hers to follow, and the shadow lingered, distant yet near, hinting at the challenges yet to come, while the night hummed softly in silver and gold, guiding her forward into the next chapter of discovery. The fog wrapped the town like a soft, silver blanket, curling around chimneys and lampposts, and Elara's footsteps whispered against the cobblestones, her cardigan brushing her arms, the faint hum of distant lanterns vibrating through the air, as if the night itself were holding its breath. She paused, listening, the crunch of gravel underfoot mingling with the sigh of the wind, a thrill of anticipation curling in her chest. She gathered the townsfolk who had glimpsed the lanterns, faces pale in the lamplight, eyes wide with curiosity and quiet fear, and the keepers moved with calm precision, lanterns cradled gently in their hands, the golden glow spilling across the cobblestones, painting everything in warm light, and together they mapped out a plan, a careful weaving of courage and caution. A route through the streets where reality itself had begun to bend, the faint hum of magic threading through the air like soft music. The first step was crossing the familiar streets. But even familiar streets had begun to twist, looping back on themselves, corners appearing where none had been, doors opening into alleys that led to other streets entirely. The town felt alive, breathing, shifting with each step they took, and Elara felt her pulse quicken, fingertips brushing against the nearest lantern, feeling its steady warmth, reminding her of why she had begun this journey, the sense of being watched threading through the fog, a shadow lingering just beyond the golden glow. They moved carefully, whispers of strategy passing softly between them, lantern light painting faces in gold eyes bright with quiet determination, the shadowy figure's presence pressing against the edges of reality, tugging at corners of the world, bending nights to unnatural lengths, making moments stretch as if time itself were hesitant. And impossible things occurred. Birds circling, upside down puddles reflecting stars that weren't in the sky, doors leading to rooms that weren't there before, and Elara felt both fear and wonder swirl together. A soft fire in her chest, her mind wandered gently even as she moved, thinking of her family, of the warmth of home, of quiet nights by the fire, and she whispered softly to herself, "We can do this, we must." The lantern's glow pulsing beneath her fingertips like reassurance, a heartbeat she could trust, and yet the thought lingered, what if I make a mistake? What if the shadow sees everything before we do? A flutter of doubt brushing her spine, mingling with the courage that had grown like a quiet flame since she first touched the lantern. The town smelled of rain on stone and the faint tang of lantern smoke, the fog curling in silver threads, branches brushing softly against windows, and the hum of magic threaded through the alleys, a gentle vibration beneath her feet, the lanterns spilling warmth over the twisting streets, shadows retreating yet lingering in corners, the night alive with possibility and threat. Elara felt the pull of it all, a thrill of danger mingled with a deep, comforting knowledge that she was not alone, that the keepers and the townsfolk were with her, breathing and moving as one. She paused for a moment, resting a hand on a lantern, its warmth spreading through her, whispering reassurance. And she looked at the small group around her, faces lit in gold and shadow, and whispered softly, "We'll face this together." The words gentle, a tether of courage and care binding them. And she felt their quiet murmurs of agreement, the steady pulse of the lanterns echoing through the fog, a soft, beating heart guiding them forward. And as they stepped toward the heart of the shifting town, streets bending unnaturally, nights stretching into golden twilight, and impossible events shimmering around them like a delicate dance, Elara felt the quiet pull of what awaited. The shadowy figure waiting beyond the glow, patient and watching, and the golden light of the lanterns hummed softly around her, carrying a promise that the next threshold would reveal more, guiding her gently into the unknown. As the fog curled around them like a soft, protective shawl, the golden light of the largest lantern shimmered like liquid honey, wrapping the chamber in a warm glow, and Elara stepped inside carefully, her fingers brushing against the smooth metal walls, feeling the faint vibration of energy humming beneath her palms. The air was thick with the scent of candle wax and faint smoke, carrying a whisper of something ancient, and the soft pulse of the lantern seemed to echo the beat of her own heart. Immediately, the space shifted around her, corridors stretching and folding, mirrors reflecting not her face but fragments of memory and fear, a faint echo of her own voice whispering questions she didn't know how to answer. And the first trial appeared, a shadow of her childhood fear, dark and looming, yet somehow familiar, moving closer. And she took a slow breath, steadying herself, whispering softly, "I am still me, I am still here." The warmth of the lantern pulsing reassurance through her. With each step deeper into the glowing heart, Another trial emerged. Regrets she had tucked away quietly. Mistakes she had buried in the soft folds of memory, each one taking shape in shadowed forms that reached toward her, delicate yet insistent. And Elara faced them slowly, touching the shadows lightly with her hands, feeling the chill of guilt melt against the warmth of the lantern, murmuring gently, "I cannot change the past, but I can learn from it." Her voice small yet steady in the vast golden chamber. Meanwhile, outside the lantern, the shadowy figure moved through the town, unseen but felt, twisting reality with quiet gestures, causing doors to slam, streets to loop unnaturally, whispers to twist into fear. And Elara could sense the chaos bleeding into the lantern's light. Each flicker a reminder of what was at stake, the warmth beneath her hands steadying her as the town around her seemed to ripple with danger, a soft ache of responsibility curling around her heart. Her mind wandered gently, even as she confronted each trial, thinking of her friends, the keepers, the townsfolk who had trusted her, and she whispered softly, almost to herself, "I will not let them down." The words carrying through the chamber like a quiet hymn, and she felt the lantern respond, its light pulsing in agreement, shadows retreating slightly as if acknowledging her courage, yet still waiting, testing the next trial already forming like a sigh of mist. The chamber smelled of rain on stone, mingled with candle smoke and a faint metallic temps, and the golden light flickered softly, casting intricate shadows that danced along the walls, curling and stretching like gentle fingers. The floor beneath her feet humming faintly with the energy of countless lanterns, the air vibrating subtly, as if the space itself were alive, breathing with her, guiding her gently toward each confrontation, each step. Elara pressed her hands to the smooth surface of a larger trial, the warmth spreading through her arms, and she whispered softly, "I am enough," letting the words settle in her chest, a soft fire against the chill of fear, the shadows folding back, revealing new passages, mirrors reflecting not only her fears but her strength. And she felt a quiet thrill of wonder and relief, a deep connection to the lantern, to the light, to herself. And as she stepped further into the heart of the lantern, trials fading gently, like mist under morning sun, the golden glow wrapping around her like a soft embrace. She could feel the town beyond flicker with faint echoes of the shadow's manipulation. Yet she held onto the warmth beneath her hands, the pulse of light, steady and comforting, guiding her softly toward what awaited. The heart of the lantern quieting around her, whispering that even in shadow there was hope, and the next moment promised discovery. The night hung heavy over the town, fog curling through the streets like gentle smoke, and Elara's footsteps whispered softly against the cobblestones, her fingers brushing the golden light of the lantern she carried, warmth spreading through her hands, while the distant hum of others pulsed faintly in the mist, like quiet heartbeats joining hers, and a shiver of anticipation curled in her chest. She stepped into the heart of the town, where lanterns floated, pulsing golden and amber, each one revealing glimpses of truths, old and new. And there, in the center, the shadow figure waited, tall and impossibly dark, yet familiar in the curve of a hand, the tilt of a head, a voice that echoed her own, soft but chilling. "At last, we meet," it whispered, and Elara's breath caught the warmth of her lantern anchoring her as the world seemed to bend, streets stretching and folding, visions blending seamlessly with reality. The first confrontation was quiet, a careful circling, each speaking in half-truths and gentle taunts, the shadow mirroring her fears, every hesitation and doubt magnified in its presence. And Elara realized with a shiver that this figure was herself, twisted by fear, indecision, the choices she had left unmade, and the thought made her chest ache with a strange mixture of sorrow and resolve. She whispered softly, "I am not you, I will not become you," and the shadow only smiled, shifting. Like smoke in golden light, lanterns across the town flickered, pulsing truths into the streets, revealing the small lies, the kindness overlooked, the courage buried, and every flicker felt like a test, a mirror held up to her soul, each one asking her to accept parts of herself she had avoided, the warmth of her own lantern throbbing beneath her palms, guiding her through the swirl of fear and reflection. "I see you," she murmured, voice steady, "all of me, and I choose the light," and the shadows quivered, hesitant, edges softening against the golden glow. Her thoughts floated gently amidst the chaos, remembering quiet moments from her childhood, her mother's hand on her shoulder, the scent of candle wax and rain on stone, the warmth of the hearth, and she whispered, "I cannot run from myself, but I can guide myself," a shiver of clarity curling through her chest, courage blooming like soft fire. She pressed her hand to the lantern, feeling its pulse echo through her bones, a gentle reassurance that she was enough, even facing this impossible version of herself. Outside, the town seemed to hold its breath, the fog thick with anticipation, streets bending softly, windows reflecting impossible angles, the faint scent of smoke and damp stone wrapping everything in a quiet hush, the lantern's glow spilling golden warmth over walls and rooftops, shadows dancing and retreating as if listening, the air alive with soft, vibrating energy, each pulse of light a heartbeat, reminding her that she was tethered to reality even as it twisted around her. The final confrontation unfolded gently yet fiercely, a battle of wits, courage, and quiet morality. Each word spoken a ripple in the lantern's light, each movement a negotiation with her own fear. And Elara felt herself tremble and steady in turn, murmuring softly, "I am all of me, and I accept it." The shadow flickering, wavering, and slowly dissolving into the golden warmth of her lantern, leaving only soft ripples of light, and the town seemed to exhale, streets settling, fog curling softly around lampposts, and as the lanterns pulsed one final time, truths shimmering in soft gold, Elara felt a quiet peace settle in her chest, the warmth of the light wrapping around her like a gentle embrace, the shadow gone, yet leaving a soft whisper of memory, the town bathed in the golden hush of dawn waiting to come, and she breathed slowly, letting the pulse of the lanterns guide her toward the soft, dreamlike promise of a new morning, hinting at mysteries yet to unfold. The first light of morning seeped through the mist, soft and silvery, curling around rooftops and chimneys, and Elara stepped cautiously along the quiet streets, the cobblestones cool beneath her feet, the faint scent of damp earth and lantern smoke lingering in the air, her breath rising in gentle clouds as she moved. The town hushed, as if holding its own pulse in quiet anticipation. The lanterns that had pulsed with golden warmth for so long were gone from the streets, leaving only the faintest shimmer in the corners of windows and reflections in puddles. And yet the memory of their light lingered, threading through the town like a gentle hum, marking where truths had been revealed, where secrets had been laid bare, and where courage had quietly taken root. Elara's footsteps echoed softly, a comforting rhythm in the silence. She wandered past familiar houses, now altered by subtle changes, doors slightly shifted, gardens rearranged, whispers of truth lingering in the air. The townsfolk, emerging from fog-wrapped doorways with soft smiles, a cautious peace in their eyes, some carrying light memories of what had been revealed, some of what had been kept, and Elara felt the weight of all that had passed settle gently. In her chest, a soft ache of responsibility mingled with relief. She murmured, "It's not the same town, but it's ours again." Her thoughts drifted inward as she walked, recalling the trials, the shadow figure, the twisted version of herself, the delicate triumph of facing fear and indecision, the golden warmth of the lanterns pulsing through her hands and heart. She whispered quietly, almost to herself, "I am stronger than I knew. I am still me." And the memory of Kale, the keepers, and the townsfolk who had stood with her brushed against her heart. A gentle reassurance that she had not faced the darkness alone. Inside, her room smelled faintly of old wood and candle wax, and the fog pressing against the windows softened the morning light into gentle silver. A breeze carrying the delicate scent of early blooms from the garden below. And there, resting quietly on her desk, flickering faintly in gold, was one small lantern humming softly as if waiting, whispering a gentle promise that the story was not yet done, that mysteries still lingered, soft and patient. Elara's fingers hovered above the lantern, warmth spreading through her hand, and she felt the quiet pulse of courage and wonder that had guided her through every trial. She whispered softly, "I will remember, I will be ready." The words, a quiet tether between herself and the unknown, and she smiled gently, feeling the bittersweet blend of triumph and lingering uncertainty fold into her chest. A delicate balance of satisfaction and curiosity. The town outside stirred, fog curling around lampposts and rooftops, leaves brushing softly against windows. The distant murmur of voices as neighbors exchanged gentle greetings, each step carrying the faint echo of what had been. The streets shimmering with a soft, unspoken promise that life would continue, and the lantern's light, though mostly vanished, had left threads of warmth woven into the town's soul, carrying whispers of courage, truth, and quiet magic. Elara settled in by her window, the small lantern glowing faintly beside her, her hands brushing its smooth surface, warmth seeping into her fingers, and she allowed herself a soft sigh, a mixture of relief and wonder curling around her. "The journey has changed me, but I am ready for what comes next," she whispered, the fog outside softening into gentle silver light, the streets holding their quiet secrets and gentle truths, a lullaby of the night's events still humming in the golden shadows. And as she watched the mist drift slowly across the rooftops, the faint flicker of her lantern casting golden threads across her room, Elara felt the quiet pull of curiosity and hope, the gentle tug of mystery still lingering in the corners. A whisper that the story, though at a close, had left tiny doors open, soft promises waiting for the next gentle step. While the town held its breath in peaceful wonder, awaiting the slow, sweet unfolding of what was yet to come.